my name is Justin Leong. I'm President of Asia Growth Markets for ResMed, and I'm based in Singapore. Sleep apnea and COPD are two very large disease areas across the world, and the prevalence is increasing. And not only that, people are very unaware of these two diseases. So we see huge growth across the world, but particularly in Asia, where we're still at a very nascent stage of these markets. There's a lot of growth potential, yes. The challenges are mainly around awareness and education. So these two diseases, particularly sleep apnea, but also COPD, are relatively unknown across Asia and also in India. And one of our big challenges in these markets is to spend time educating physicians, educating the government, and also educating people who have these diseases, the patients, about how they can adequately treat them. Yeah, so we recently did a study, and there are quite a few studies around the world, and we think there are over 900 million people around the world with sleep apnea, and over 300 million with COPD. And the interesting thing about Asia is that, particularly in terms of COPD is caused by people smoking, people breathing pollution, air pollution, or people breathing, in particular in India, the smoke from ovens in people's homes. 2/3 of all COPD patients are just in China and India alone. So this is a huge burden for these countries to deal with all these people that have have a lot of trouble breathing, basically. Yeah, so in India and in most Asian countries, we're still at the very early stage. So while we think there are, say, 900 million people around the world with sleep apnea, in India, there may be over 50 million people with sleep apnea, and we're, far below 1% penetrated into that market. So there's a huge number of undiagnosed people in India that have sleep apnea. And that's, one of the things we're really working on, to try and find these people, help them get advice from their doctors, and get diagnosed, and then hopefully get on to treatment so they can sleep better. Sure, so ResMed actually started off the industry. We were the first company to launch a product that could treat sleep apnea 30 years ago. And our company started in Sydney, Australia. And over the whole 30 years, we've grown very strongly, but including in the last 5 years, where we've introduced a lot of new technology to try and make it easier for people to be treated with their sleep apnea. Our devices are very small, very quiet, very comfortable. And in recent years, we've introduced a lot of new digital technology to enable people to more easily get onto our therapy and stay on our therapies. India has huge potential. We've been in India more than 10 years, but we're still at the very early stages of the market. So it takes a lot of work, I'll be honest. It's a lot of events to educate doctors. It's a lot of meetings with government to educate government on how to treat these diseases. But these diseases have a huge burden on people's health and also the economy. I mean, when people don't sleep well, they're very unproductive during the day. It can cause traffic accidents. It's highly related to other diseases, like you can get high blood pressure. It can make your diabetes worse. You're at greater risk of stroke. So if you don't treat sleep apnea, it can really be it's terrible for the person involved, but it's also a big burden on the country. And also in terms of COPD, we know this is an epidemic. It's one of the biggest killers across the world, but particularly in Asia. So it's something that governments really have to focus on in order to help these people have a much better quality of life and longer lives. So ResMed has always been, our history is one of innovation. So we were the company that first invented what we call the CPAP device, which is continuous positive airway pressure. And we continue to innovate both on our devices and our algorithms to try and make the therapies more comfortable. But we're also, in the last few years, the biggest revolution is connecting all of our devices to the cloud. so that patients and doctors every day, the next day when they wake up, can see their data, can see whether they slept well, can see whether they use their device well, they can see whether their health is improving. And in this way, we know whether the therapies are effective. And this is a big revolution in the industry. And we now have millions of people in the world on what we call cloud-connected devices. And this is really changing the way we interact with all of our stakeholders, patients, doctors, etc. Yes, I mean, the other thing is it's not always easy for people to first get used to our therapies. So our mission is to make our therapies the most sort of unobtrusive and comfortable as possible. So we now have the world's smallest device that you can, it's about 300 grams. You put it next to you on your bed when you're sleeping. We have very comfortable masks now, which are very small and easy to wear during the night. So people don't even realize that they're using our devices. And the next day they wake up refreshed, feeling great, feeling healthy, and it completely changes their lives if you talk to patients who are using our therapies. Yeah, so we have big plans in Asia, especially in the big countries like India and China. We know that the future of ResMed is in this part of the world. This is where all of our potential patients are, and we know we need to invest, but also think innovatively about how we reach patients in these markets. So we don't necessarily want to just copy the strategies we've had in other countries. We really want to tailor our strategies to the local market here, and that's why we have a very big presence here in India, and we continue to think about new ways to reach both patients and doctors to help more and more people find out about our therapies and then improve their health.